Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. This show is designed to highlight the work of philanthropic leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, Samuel Waxman. And Sam Waxman is the co-founder and president of the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation. Let's all welcome Sam. And Sam, it is a delight to have you back on Successful Philanthropy. And once again, I want to start with a little question that you've answered before, and that is, what exactly does the Samuel Waxman Foundation do?
Well, gee, nice to be with you again. You seem very bright and eager to go again, coming back from Palm Beach, and welcome back to New York City. Well, for 50 years, Jean, as a cancer physician and physician scientist, our goal is to understand how cancer occurs at the gene level. Simply said, cancers come about because genes don't function properly. And if it's not caught in time, a couple of gene mistakes and a cell can go wrong, and that cell could be a cancer cell. We want to find out what genes go wrong and find a means of correcting it by understanding what the consequence is, and consequently, we bring in a new medicine to correct that. It's called a targeted gene correction.
Now, Sam, you're involved in supporting cancer research in a very big way. Since you began, many new things have taken place, and it seems like more and more cancers are curable. What exactly have you done, and what groups have you supported, and what discoveries have you made?
Wow, that's a long series of questions. Put it simply, the cancer rate and incidence is definitely increasing. It's no doubt about it. It's increasing globally, significantly, and it's because we're living longer. And the longer you live, the better chance you have of getting cancer. So since we're getting into a world that by 19 and another 20 years, over 25% of the world will be over the age of 65, with most developed countries. And so the incidence of cancer doesn't start going up really until you're 40. Then it goes way up, straight line, like every stockbroker would like to see, and doesn't stop rising. So the top incidence of cancer gets to be around 80. And since more and more today's 80 is like a 40 and a 60 is like a 30, you can see why more of your friends and our friends are getting cancer, because aging is the major driver of cancer.
Yes. What about young cancers in people that are, say, under 40 and between 40 and 50? Are those cancers also on the rise?
Yes, it's certainly some of the cancers are definitely on the rise. And if you look for causes of that, you can find that they are aging poorly. There is all sorts of ways to age. You can age with healthy longevity, you can age with poor longevity. So a lot of these younger people that are getting colon cancer, for example, may be obese, they may have inflammatory bowel disease, or if you look for gene abnormalities, you'll find them in this younger group, but ordinarily that wouldn't be there. They would be starting when you're 60, 70, and 80. So even there, you'll find implications of an abnormal aging process in younger people. So one thing we want to find out is, how can we diagnose that? And if you ask me what the foundation is doing, we have organized an international program on aging and cancer. We have places in Israel, US, and most recently in China, where I started an institute called the International Center for Aging and Cancer Research. And our goal, one day, I hope to bring out to everyone, is what is your healthy longevity? What is your real aging? What is your biologic age rather than your chronological age? What is your risk factor for aging-related cancer? And on the other side, what's your cancer risk? What genes are not functioning, so on and so forth. And then have an algorithm that a doctor will be able to print out and say, you have poor longevity risk, and this is what you have to do. You have certain cancer risks, that's what you have to do. And my good friend AI is going to help me do it.
And I think prevention is the key. Speaking of prevention, what advice do you give to both young and old people on how to prevent cancer?
I think the most important thing is you have to stay slim. In other words, you don't want to be obese. Stay away from the bad habits of smoking, excessive alcohol. I think there is a relation of stress. Know your family history. That's very important. Don't forget it. If there is a family history of cancer, then look for early imaging and things of that type. And as far as diet goes, it's still quite controversial as to what the best diet is. I think if you can keep a lean weight and have a balanced diet, I think we've covered it. And of course, have the necessary testing done so you can have you can prevent colon cancer by taking out polyps. You can get an early diagnosis of a breast cancer with a mammogram. You can, if you have symptoms, try to figure out what they are too by sonograms, so on and so forth. So there's a lot one can do. Common sense, don't be an ostrich and put your head in the ground. Don't take a fad diet. Don't take multivitamins because they're going to stop something. These are very straightforward things. If everybody would do that, we'd have an amazing impact.
There's been a lot of talk about 5G towers and living around electric plants, that this could possibly cause cancer. Do you agree with this? And if someone does live near a 5G tower or an electric plant, what do you suggest?
Well, I think it would be an unsightly thing to live by, and I would protest it just for that reason. And that's enough. As far as whether it causes disease, that's speculation. And I don't think you could really make that, you'll read some reports, but I don't think it's nailed down. So I had that situation where I live in East Hampton where they wanted to put something up in a silo in a community. And I said, no, it's something that potentially could do something. But the main reason is I didn't want it there because it's kind of ugly right sitting there. So I think there has to be a better way to do it. But no, same thing with headphones and iPods. I think if you have iPods all the time, it can make your ears get inflamed. It can hurt your hearing a little bit because of that wax and stuff that builds up. But that brain cancer does not come from headphones or things like that, to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. And speaking about weight, many people today are taking Ozempic and other types of injections, etc., to lose weight. What do you think about doing that in order to reduce your incidence of cancer?
Great question. No one knows the answer. If there's evidence in a laboratory animal that obesity, overfed mice have tumors grow more rapidly. They're more frequent as a mouse that's been starved intermittently. So we're not mice. They're inbred. So we don't know the answer there. The story with heart disease and the incidence of heart attacks seems to be impacted with weight loss due to these particular injections, or may even be more than that, than just the weight loss. We don't know yet. I would predict, and it's a prediction, that this will be part of a healthy longevity profile in the future. And if someone has a poorly aging profile, that's an increased cancer risk, then that person would want to have a weight reduction in some manner, but that has to be studied carefully. Prediction is, the answer is yes, one day this will become part of treatment, and maybe not that far away.
All very interesting. But it seems that if you try to stay slender, you watch your diet and you don't drink too much, you don't smoke, and you eat the way you should eat, not too many sweets.
Exercise should be in there as well. Again, you can exercise an animal and also have an impact on whether the immune system is more effective in inhibiting tumor growth. But also, I think it makes you feel better. So it's a double award. Just don't do it for the vanity. When you're in there struggling away, so you think you just look better. I think I can make myself be better, feel better.
Interesting. And there's also a lot of talk about positive mindset, people that are positive, people that don't stress too much, well, that they may have a lower incidence of cancer. Do you believe that? Or is that pure speculation?
I think it's speculation. You'll find some evidence for that in laboratory systems without question. The trials to test that are very, very difficult as one single variant, because I don't think we know how to measure stress very well. I mean, some people have stress and they don't know it. Other people have tons of stress and they deal with it. So I think if you have less stress in general, I think you have a better life. And so does that translate to longer life? Yes. Well, then you can say, well, you got a better chance of getting cancer because you're living longer. They all fit. Stressless existence will probably make you live longer. At the same time, you may have to encounter disease, so you have to have other ways of combating it.
Yes. Now, Sam, you have a number of events coming up this summer and then in the fall to fund the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation. And as the founder and president of the foundation, explain to our audience just how important fundraising is for the future of cancer research and particularly for your work.
That's a great question. The Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation, SWCRF, is totally dependent on funding from other sources, like many other philanthropic organizations. We get lots of grants from the NIH and governments. We have other foundations that support us, but it's still the individual donor that makes a difference. And so in simple terms, we need to raise almost $6 million a year to end up funding our programs and growing and having the international impact we have. And it's basically 60% of that is event driven, which is anyone like you would know, Jean, trying to make enough money from an event is costly. So the overhead is extremely high, and it gets more and more difficult. And so to do that, we have a number of events, and I'll call your attention to a couple right now. There's one coming up that's very, very unique. For the first time in June, incorporated with the Hamptons happening, which we've had for many years, which will be held on July 6th. At the end of June, we have something called Step Up to Knock Cancer Down. And we have MetLife Stadium, where the Giants and Jets play football. And we have 4 legends of football hosting it with us, including 3 of them are in the Football Hall of Fame. And it's going to be a 3-kilometer walk in MetLife Stadium, which will be a phenomenal thing to bring families to, because you never get a chance to walk the field where these football players are going to be. And the other part of it will be in the Hamptons. We will be having a virtual walk, and that will come into the Hamptons happening. So that's really a very exciting event that we're having. So you can spread the word on that and come. And if you have kids or anyone like myself that loves football players who of the old days when the Giants were winning, they're going to be there. They're going to be there. And the Hamptons happening will be an exciting event as usual. Just before that, again, we have one coming up next week, Waxman Luncheon, which it's a great one at River Park. And then later in the year, in November, our annual gala, which is a major happening in New York City. It's always fun. A lot of great people show up, and there are others. So it is a mandatory situation. I'll just say simply that I've run a laboratory for many years, and I've made some discoveries, and I've helped lives, and I've solved with my colleagues a form of leukemia that you don't even need chemotherapy for today. So I and you have helped save lives.
I want to interrupt because you do so many wonderful things. And before you go on, what is the website to purchase tickets to these exciting events coming up?
Go to waxmancancer.org.
And right there, you can see how to purchase tickets to
the luncheon, right. Luncheon's next week. And I can give you the phone number, which is 212-867-4502. So
yes, excellent. Now, Sam, I just want to relate to the audience a little bit about my own personal experience with the Sam Waxman Cancer Foundation. Many years ago, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he was 86 at the time, very nervous, very afraid that his life was coming to an abrupt end. And he went for a number of different opinions, and I insisted that he go see Samuel Waxman. And Sam, and I don't want to quote you, but I want you to relate the story. My understanding is that because of the type of cancer he had, you started on a slow type of chemotherapy because of his age being 86. Is my understanding that you felt the cancer was growing slowly and that he didn't need a whole strong, aggressive approach to the treatment. But I want you to tell our audience exactly how you treated my dad and how it changed my father's life. My father lived to 93. He was active until the day he died of a stroke. I want to hear from you.
Well, that's a long time ago, Jean. I want to make a point here that just because you're old doesn't mean cancer has to grow slow. In fact, most cancers grow more rapidly and spread more rapidly when you're older, which is something that most people don't appreciate. And that's something I'm studying with my colleagues in the lab right now as we speak. Then there are certain forms of cancers, despite age, are very slow growing and difficult to treat. And the reason I didn't treat it, and your father was not so much as age, is he had a slow growing cancer. So as far as I remember, it was in the lymphoma family or something like that. And it was very low grade. And to try to eradicate in those days, the treatments were so harsh, and it didn't buy much more time. And as a result, it was not necessary for me to treat him harshly because it wouldn't be better than good. Just a very maintenance kind of controlling the blood count, so to speak. And that was my prediction. That's what happened. Now, what would happen today? It's really interesting that in this, if I remembered correctly, there's a whole bunch of new drugs out that are not toxic, that are more specific. And they are, if this type of cancer has been studied carefully at the gene level, which we do, and every doctor now, every cancer doctor has learned, and he has a marker for this, you can give him a drug that's not toxic and diminish the number of cells and increase life even longer with not much toxicity. So things have improved. But at the time, your dad had the benefit of not needing harsh treatment because it wouldn't have helped very much.
And we thank you, Sam Waxman, for
well, I thank you. You know,
us.
every time I see you, I can see that look of gratitude in your eyes, and it's the most gratifying thing for a doctor to see. And you know what? Don't forget it, folks. Your doctor appreciates the feedback when they've done a good job. It's more than money. We're in it because we love people and we want to keep them well. And just remember that when you go see your doctor. They're there to help cure you, take care of you. Same time, show the caring and respect that I'm getting from this woman right here that I'm looking at.
My family thanks you very much, because my father, again, he lived on to 93, and it was nothing related to cancer when he passed away. And because you treated him with a lot of loving care and not so aggressively, as you mentioned, his cancer was slow growing, and you were aware of that. And we thank you. Now, getting back to the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation, as you look forward, do you envision that there will be more and more ways to treat cancers early on, where people will no longer have to fear and suffer the way they do today?
Well, that's sometime in the future. I can say this, that I think people are more educated about cancer today. It's more in the open, so they're more apt to get treatment early. So that's important. Before, you didn't want to talk about it, and fearful is horrible. Most people that get cancer are still cured if you get it early. And even late, there's many, many cancers that you can cure. And treatments today are not always, but more and more less harsh. They're more targeted, they're more scientifically based. So the treatment regimens are more compatible with a good life. You don't have to be destroyed by your treatment like 50 or 40 or even 20 years ago. Things are much better that way. And so there's not been a better time if you're going to get cancer than now. And that predicts, this has all happened as a result of research, breaking the DNA code and the gene code, and being able to really get very, very individual treatments. And with the remarkable technology, things changed in the last 20 years. It took hundreds of years to get there. So that predicts in the next 20 years, it's going to be totally multiple magnitudes better. So one can say that all forms of cancer are treatable. We're not there yet. We still have some nasty cancers that are just not treatable. My prediction is within 10 years, all forms of cancer will be treatable, which is fine. To prevent cancer, my golly, we can't even get our people to take a flu shot. So how are you going to get them to do all the other things? So hopefully education will make people realize they got to follow the rules that you and I just discussed. So I'm optimistic that we'll see another revolution coming.
This is all very, very exciting news, because obviously no one wants to get cancer, and to know that if you do get cancer, the treatment is much, much easier than it was in the past, and that the research being done by groups like yours, the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation, are really improving people's lives. And without funding and research, nothing happens. And Sam, if you had one wish for the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation, what would that be?
Well, I'm looking to make the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation an institute. And that's going to be a legacy. It's going to be the Samuel Waxman Aging and Cancer Research Institute. We're going to be the center of that internationally and try to beat down this rising incidence of cancer. Our mission will be to understand why aging is driving cancer, and we're going to be the place that will be the center of that. So the wish is...
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
My final question to you is, what advice do you give to young people who might be interested in getting involved in cancer research, or doing something with their lives that really makes a difference? You are a real trailblazer. You went out on your own. You started this foundation. You've achieved a lot. What advice do you give to young people who want to do something like you?
Well, I think I often say to people, you should have a dream. You shouldn't settle for anything other than that. If your dream is to have impact on people, then find a way to do it and don't settle for less. Don't be discouraged because people say medicine is tough, you don't make as much money. My answer to that is there's not a more gratifying experience in life, in my opinion, in any profession, than to have a rapport with another human being and know that you're helping them. That's a big plus. You can't buy it. You have to do it. And so my advice is follow your dream.
And I like that. Sam, you have been a wonderful guest. I want to thank you very much. Again, what is the website for the Samuel Waxman Cancer Research Foundation for those that might want to donate or who might want to get involved?
Waxmancancer.org.
Thank you. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Samuel Waxman. He is the founder and president of the Samuel Waxman Cancer Foundation. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host. I'll see you next week.